Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and welcome to a very special episode of Chosen's Corner. I'm going to be sitting down with Kizzle, who is the first guest that I've ever had on for an interview twice. So, if you're not familiar with Kizzle, he was one of the top content providers for Raid Shadow Legends back when he had to take a break because of personal life, work, and stuff like that. So it's been tough for him to stay active in the community. But definitely one of my good friends and one of the top people in the raid community. So I'm really excited to kind of reconnect and touch base with him again. We're going to be having this kind of a candid conversation about everything from the in-game stuff like the Torment release and how it changed the meta to business analytics and diving into that stuff and some funny other stuff as well. So anyway, hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Alrighty, and now I am joined by the guest of honor. What is up, Kizzle? How you doing?
Hey man, how are you doing? I'm doing good.
Hey, it's been crazy. I get asked a lot in comment sections and on stream. It's like, hey, is Kizzle all right? Is Kizzle alive? Have you heard anything about? And so you come up a lot. So yeah, update the people on kind of what you're up to and what's been going on with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to start out with, like that's, for me, it's like the coolest thing to hear that, I get a good bit of that on Discord as well, and from the rest of our group, and number one, it's really cool that the content producers, they check up on me like yourself, DM, Stu, everybody, J Gigs, and it's interesting, dude, because like basically I went headfirst into a new job, frankly, a job that I wanted for a really long time that I never even really thought I'd get, to work in like, private equity and get to make, key decisions and all that kind of stuff. And so I went headfirst into it like you should, took it really seriously and, kind of just made a hard pivot in life. But, here's like this community that, made a huge impact on me that I guess I made a big impact on. That like, keeps coming back and, it isn't going to let me go kind of thing, which is cool because now like I'm motivated, even though I don't have a ton of time, but I'm motivated to get back into it because it's a really special community is ultimately what I'm trying to say. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna agree with you. I was gonna say, yeah, no, it's kind of crazy. Like in terms of a mobile game, I think Plarium got so lucky in terms of like right out the gate, so many people like you and Darth and Stu and people that hit the ground running were high level players and were usually doesn't it take games a while to get like a content creation community, but it seemed like with Raid it was like boom right out the gate off and running.
Yeah, it's I think it might have something to do with, the amount of money that they put into their advertising budget. I mean now it's crazy, right? Because it's bizarre to be like at a work function, and then suddenly like Raid plays on the TV in the background, and you're like, like what?
Yeah.
It's a little weird, but I think it's happened to like all of us. Like we've all like seen how much like money they spend on their advertising. So, but I mean, even from the beginning, though, they had a heavy marketing budget. So I think the game grew exponentially for its genre because of the marketing efforts. And then, from a business development standpoint, if you can have a heavy marketing budget from day one, that's a very effective strategy. That's something I would, push in like my professional life. Like, can we go hard on marketing from minute one? Because that's going to, obviously get the word out there and help you to establish a brand and all that. So I think they rapidly, really exponentially grew the company, even for its genre. And then there was this void, right? Because, people wanted to learn the game. There was some complexity to it. There was stuff like Spider. Back then it was like Spider 15, and no one could clear it. And then, people wanted that extra help. They wanted, some guides, they wanted some information. The biggest thing was all these champions and no one knew what they did.
Yeah.
And, all of a sudden you catch a legendary, the screen lights up gold and you're like, is this a good one? Or is this like when I rolled Bad L, I didn't know who he was. It was like my first week of playing and I was like, so I immediately like went to Discord and I was like, does anybody know what Bad L is? And at the time, like two or three people were like, yeah, he's not good, which is
Wow.
crazy. So like at the time I was even like, man, somebody like there's got to be a content like producer at some point that like gets us some answers. Then you kind of sit there for a little bit. You're like, well, wait a minute, maybe I could do that. So the game grew exponentially, and it didn't have the content producers, to answer all these questions that the new player base had, which was essentially, are my champions good, and how do I beat the harder levels, and how do I get more damage on clan boss? And then it just set up guys like yourself and me like really well to come in and, build a brand. I mean, very quickly,
Yeah, and back then nobody really knew anything. Like the content providers were all in like gold 1, and like and probably the most pressing questions were always that people want to know when they're like newer is like, I summoned a few champions, like which ones are worth booking, like which ones are worth investing in, and they want to. That's why like tier lists. There was like one tier list floating around Reddit, but it like wasn't very accurate back in the day. Like it said like Nazana was like double S tier for campaign, and it's like I mean,
I remember that.
Maybe as like a defensive, to help you 3-star, but not as a farmer.
Yeah. No, and I know exactly what you're referring to, and and I was looking through tier lists like crazy in the beginning, and to be honest, that's why like I ended up not really liking them, because like I never felt like that's what I would do. I would see SS, I go book that champion, and then more often than not, I never used the champion that I booked, and then I kind of started to realize like, well, that has a lot to do with my other champions, like my composition, and then has a lot to do with the fight itself, like. I think maybe the most telling thing for me was my clan boss team, despite having a ton of legendaries early on, because I was just wailing, was mostly epics. It was like Steel Skull, Juliana, Skull Crusher. I think I had Bad L in there, and then I can't remember who I had as my 5th in the beginning, but predominantly epics. And I had all these legendaries, and I'm sitting back like, okay, well, it said SS, but my damage sucks when I use this guy, so what's going on? I had no idea. And I kind of realized it's more about how they all work together, and it made me kind of not as crazy about the tier list, but honestly, the second I started playing Epic 7, I was like, all right, where's the tier list that guy?
Yeah,
because I don't know what I'm doing here. So it is a useful thing, but in that beginning to play raid and figure it all out, the initial tier list, before you got in, started to do them, from what I can remember, I mean, they were like awful,
it's a tough line to walk, because I agree with you, but I know that it's such a resource. That's why I did mine different. I did it like ranking all the rares and ranking all the epics, so that you can see like, okay, this is at least one endgame player that says this is the 8th best epic. They're probably worth putting some books in. But if you just have a tier list that says like they're an A here, they're a B here, they're a C here, they're a S here, they're a D here, how's a new player supposed to decipher that and be like, okay, so should I use my books or not? That's why I wanted to do a different one that like ranks them from 1 to 100. In order of how impactful they are in your account, and like you said, it's just impossible to do it perfectly. Like you can always come in and argue about someone's rankings. It's a challenging thing you have to kind of constantly monitor.
It's highly subjective, and then as the game changes, the content changes, as they change the champions themselves, then it puts all that work back on you. So like. And you're smart enough to know what you're getting yourself into the first day you go to build that. You're like, well, every time somebody figures out that like a champion doesn't suck, I'm gonna have to go edit all this. Like everything is going to change. Yep. I'm sure that's the world you live in, but like that's why I was never going to do it.
And people will see that I'm live, and they'll come to my stream just to say like, hey, I just want to tell you your ranking of so-and-so is trash. Like, so.
It was bizarre, man. Like some of the, like people would tell me that, like, they'd be like, did you, like, people got like offended. They'd be like, did you see that Chosen ranked so-and-so at 5? Can you believe that shit? And I'd be like, I mean, dude, it's highly subjective. I mean, would I put him at 5? I don't know. That's why I didn't do one, like, I'm not going to be the critic, where I'm sitting here like, all right, well, let me just talk shit because you just invested a shitload of time into something that I was never going to invest time into.
That's the thing is people get an attachment. They summon a champion, they invest in it, they play with that champion, they get a little bit of an attachment, and then they want to see that champion kind of ranked higher than maybe it should be.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, especially when they, use like books, which,
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time, books didn't have a dollar value until Plarium decided they were just going to blatantly rob the player base by putting a dollar value on books. Um, so I remember like those book packs that would pop up whenever you'd roll a legendary, and it was almost as exciting as getting a legendary because that was how you got
Yeah.
books,
Yep. I remember. I bought those $100 book packs more times than I want to admit.
Oh God, way more times than I want to. That was the one thing that like really that was the biggest change going to Epic 7 for me was like I almost got to a point where I ran out of things to wail on
Wow.
because I got to that spending curve and like whaling curve with Raid where like you can almost always throw money at Raid and it'll help. Maybe a little bit, but it'll help. Like on Epic 7, it was like, yeah, I kind of have everything I need right now. Like, and there's no packs that I really need to buy, so maybe I'll just
Huh.
hang out. For me, it was weird because Ray wasn't like that. For Ray was always like, always had to spend money, in an attempt to try to, stay ahead or stay where you're at. But
Mm-hmm. Are
honestly, I
you?
haven't
Go ahead.
logged into Raid in. No, I was gonna say I haven't logged into Raid in maybe a month. So I don't even know. Like, you might have to tell me a little bit about how it's
No, that's
changed
that's
if it
perfect
has.
because that was going to be my question. I was gonna be like, so are
Okay.
you currently playing? Like, are you an active like player who kind of lurks in the community and follows what's going on, or are you like have you been completely disconnected? And if so, how long have you been?
No, that's a really good question. So I stick to my Discord for sure. Um, Most of the time, I'm kind of like taking in because there's a lot going on in there. So most of the time, I'm kind of taking in what's going on. I got like a few key people like Gremlin, Troy, No Pants, guys that, Cornelius, people that have just been at every one of my streams from day one. If they say something, like I'm definitely going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll even scroll back to see what they're reading.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll do that from time to time, like when, some big event, like, the RTZ drama pops up, somehow, some way, I'll notice it and then I'll like get into it for like 30 minutes.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I stick to my Discord. I check that probably every other day, if not every day. And then, we obviously have a content creator chat. It used to be just me, you, Darth, and Stu. Now we have everyone, and that's where I go because we all have gotten along so well from day one, and you guys have all the information. So I'll kind of go through there, scroll up a little bit, see what you guys are talking about, and then kind of go right into anything that I have questions about or I'm trying to figure out. But um, as far as playing the game goes. So like I do know the creative director of Raid pretty well. I talked to him on Skype. Well, I used to talk to him on Skype like every week. I don't really, maybe whenever. Honestly, I talked about a month ago. So we still keep in touch. In our last conversation, like we got into a little bit of a debate over Torment. And to be honest, it kind of just turned me off of the game a little bit because that's when they were nerfing Torment. And we had like a really frank conversation where I was like, I think that's the stupidest thing that you could do. And he was like, well, I mean, that's what choice do we have? And I was like, well, your choice is you could hire some testers, dude. Like, maybe just quit saying you have testers. Like, maybe start there.
Let me
And he and I are
let me interrupt you because people are gonna want to
good.
know. People are gonna want to
Sure.
know what was like your problem. Like, what were you saying should have been different, or like
Yeah.
about the Tormund change?
Well, he was a cash grab, right? A pretty blatant one. So folks, it was kind of like, Foley, and it was like Foley, but it was real, because Torment completely changed the arena meta, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so he came in blatantly overpowered. Everybody knew from the second they read his kit that he was overpowered, right? That he was going to be just completely change the meta.
Mm-hmm.
He comes out, yep, just like everybody thought, totally overpowered, completely changes the meta. And for me, it was like, okay, cool. That was aggressive. Now you've kind of set yourself up. You're going to have to continue to change the meta, with new champions, and then find a balance, at some point that you're not completely changing the game every time you drop a champion. That was just sort of my assumption. And then when they released that they were going to nerf them, back in the day, I used to like try to complain to Cyrilla and Valk, like, guys, don't do this. But I finally realized like they don't make decisions. Like they're just there to receive complaints and put them in a consolidated email and forward it to the guy I talked to, essentially. So I went straight to him and I said, hey man, like, because I always was really respectful about, I'm not going to go to him and complain unless I got something to really say.
Yeah,
I can approach it from a business perspective. We can have a real talk. We talked on the phone about it, and he was like, "You got a minute?" I said, "Sure." We got on the phone, and I was like, "Listen, dude. I mean, it's a really bad decision to kind of have like, let's just call him a $300 champion USD for argument's sake, and then all of a sudden everybody has it. Everybody has to have it to compete, and now you're going to nerf it, like." And he was like, well, the nerf's not going to be too significant. And I was like, well, why didn't you test it before you dropped it? Like that would make sense here. Like, test it out a little bit. I was like, I know you guys don't have testers. It drives me crazy that you actually have testers. And he kind of like suggested that, well, there's people that get paid as testers, but who knows what they're doing, and
how do I get paid to be one of these testers? Because people like you and me can tell them what the testing result's going to be like.
Yeah. And that's one thing I always like, and that's why I was never too like public about my conversations with the creative director, because he always shot me straight, and his opinion usually was right there with mine. Right. So if I was like, listen, man, you guys have awful testers, he'd be like, oh, dude, I agree. And I'd be like, oh, I didn't expect you to say that, but like he was always like that. And then in this case, like we didn't agree, and he was like, well, look, I mean, Tormund's nerf isn't going to be that significant. And, and I said, well, do you even know what it is yet? And he was like, honestly, no. And I was like, well, I mean, why announce it? This is just categorically stupid. And we just didn't see eye to eye on it. But at the end of it, like, it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I really didn't want to log back into the game after that. And I kind of like made, a few pretty blunt statements in like moderator chat saying like, look, you guys only have so many more of these catastrophic screw ups that you're going to be able to do before the player base just moves on to another game, and
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so I kind of made that point, and then it wasn't really. Tormund was kind of just the straw that broke the camel's back for me, to be honest. I had too many other things going on. It was becoming a pain to log in, and do my daily routine or whatever, So when that happened with Tormund, I had no interest in Platinum Arena.
Same. Yeah, I still don't. Yep.
Yeah, I don't even get why the people that do it, frankly, because it's not really competitive. Like I did a stream where I brought in Cartman, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was Cartman, and like he walked me through like a strategy with all my champions. We changed all my gear, and then I got to Platinum Arena. I didn't get to like a top rank because honestly I quit trying. It was horribly boring in that meta. Like there was nothing interesting about the tournament meta for me, whereas like Epic 7 as an example, I mean it's incredibly dynamic, and there's live arena, and if you see a team, it's all about, okay, how am I going to counter like on layers here? How am I going to counter each one of these unique kits? Whereas in radio it's just kind of like I just jump in there with my preset team here, which I can't even remember the top of my head, but like Tormund, Sylar, whoever else, Valkyrie if you have them. If you have her, and you kind of just dominated. But the rounds took like 5 minutes too, and they were all RNG. So I was like, this really isn't fun.
Yeah,
and,
I agree. I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. Sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I agree with the change on face value because the game, I think it was a good idea that was implemented poorly. Because the game used to be just, okay, whoever is the fastest arbiter wins. And so you want to do something, you want to do something that changes to give you a chance if you're not gonna win the first arbiter. So they tried to do like a defensive based, meta shifter, but they implemented it in the most annoying way possible, which is freezes, and they made it all RNG. Like there's no consistent like, oh, Tormund froze them or he didn't. Like, so they didn't like the two most awful, like annoying ways they could have, but the idea on the surface was probably a good one.
Yeah, and you also have to keep in mind, like they did it in the two most annoying ways possible, but that were also the most simple ways possible, right? They didn't put a lot of thought into it, you know. So essentially, they have this meta obviously that's arbiter that is a turn meter gain meta essentially, and then if you gain turn meter, you get frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of screws up everything, right?
Yeah,
and that's as far as they went.
Yeah.
There was really nothing else to it. They didn't think in any kind of layers. They just had a causative response to what the main champion in the meta was doing as the fight initiated. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't fun. I think the most bizarre thing was, a lot of content producers, especially like live streamers, like they went down that path of Platinum Arena, and like that became like their thing. And that was the other thing that kind of like might have rubbed me wrong a little bit was, I knew you, me, Darth, and Stu were probably not going to screw with that too much because we thought it was stupid, and not to say that folks that, started doing it, I'm glad they got into it. I'm glad they started making content. But at the same time, like, the player base for the most part is, it feels like they're pretty well influenced by the content producers. And then, like, I was getting all these like questions about like Platinum Arena as if I thought it was a good thing, because other people were doing Platinum Arena all the time. And I was like, honestly, I think it's awful. I think it's absolutely, like, I don't know why we don't like kind of boycott it and let them know what we think about it, but people are playing it like crazy. So, for whatever reason, it's boring as the day is long,
Yeah, I've said my stance since day one is that it's literally inefficient for your account to be in Platinum Arena. It's either way, I'm gonna 3-key the clan boss whether I'm in Platinum or not, and then if I'm not in Platinum, I'll get more Great Hall medals. So it's literally inefficient for my account to progress to Platinum. But the people who have opposed me on that, they say, well, it's the fun of the competition. I want to push to see how high I can get. I play this game for the competitive aspect, and the only avenue I can get that fix is in the arena, trying to get to rank 10 instead of rank 500. That's like a rush for me to theory craft how to beat this team and then how to beat this team. So that's kind of the two ways of thinking, is like, do you want to be efficient in your Great Hall medals progression, or do you want the fun of like theory crafting to win in the arena versus, said team?
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying 100%. I think that the challenge of that is, number one, right, the champions are... My bad, dude. I just totally dropped an F-bomb on YouTube. But I got a text message I didn't expect. But having to do with what we talked about earlier. So backing up a second, number one, first of all, there's not enough diversified gear in the game to support like a counter meta, right? So like you can't go in and say, okay, cool, let me swap out gear. Let me do something really different here so I can like counter what I'm dealing with. Like that's number one, right? The only gear diversification I really saw in the game sadly came from Faction Wars, and it was just when like Savage became and Stun became semi-relevant. But that, for me, that really didn't exist in Platinum Arena. Like people were building resist up, but they weren't even using resist sets to do so. Right? So countering something, you don't necessarily have to change your gear to do so. You might have to implement having more resist, but that kind of became more of a tedious process and a farming process because you were selling off all your resist gear, and now maybe you need it. It's not like you went out there and farmed a resist set. That you're still farming your speed set. Now you just need a speed set with resist gear or the resist substats, right? And then number two, there's really not a clear way to get champions. So you're either lucking out, you're whaling out, or you're not countering anything.
Mm-hmm.
So like, not to keep going right back to Epic 7, but in Epic 7, the champions are pretty well available. There's banner champions or marquee champions, however you want to put it, and they're all top tier. I mean, literally one of the rarest, hardest champions to get, like the bad L of Epic 7 is going to be a banner champion next month.
Mm-hmm.
And you have pity summons. After 120 summons, you get a pity summon, you automatically get the champion. So there's still some whaling involved, but you actually have a clear path forward to get good champions. And now you can go in and now you can play with the meta and actually counter it,
Mm-hmm.
So again, countering a meta, countering, teams to work your way up through a rank, that makes all the sense in the world to me. I love anything competitive. When the prizes are as like abhorrently terrible as they are in Platinum Arena and they come weekly, I'm sorry, I lost all motivation, and any like modicum of motivation I had, like a psychopath like RTZ stole from me whenever he decided to, go up 300 points in, the tier so he can make a blundered proposal to the Ukrainian girl that moderates the Discord. That was the most bizarre world for me, dude. Like I could talk about that way longer than I probably should, but that was so awkward on so many levels. And I'm sitting back like, dude, I mean, you just tried really do that. That's really not something girls like, first of all. Number two, you kind of just Platinum Arena for all of us. So really appreciate that, dude. Let me know how it works out, though. I'm sure she'll say no.
Let's try not to go down the RTZ rabbit hole, but yeah, because there's so much going on there that I don't even really know what to say. But on that note, I do want to take a quick moment to shout out this video's sponsor. It's going to be Epic 7. No, I'm just kidding. But
dude, I was about to be like, how did you get an Epic 7 sponsorship? And I never did playing the game.
That's what it was starting to sound like, though.
No, dude, I actually asked them for like a download code at one point, and they were like, yeah, we don't really need the help growing. And I was like, awesome. It's really considerate of you guys. But I never got it. But honestly though, it's just a good game. And when you leave like a game like Raid to play a comparable game within the same genre that's actually well designed, it is kind of shocking. The contrast between the two is very revealing.
Are you even like familiar with all the stuff that's been going on? The banned accounts and the battle pass and yeah.
No, not at all. So there's a battle pass now.
Yeah, there's a battle pass, which actually I think would have been positively received if it wasn't coded in a fog of just terrible things going on. You said you weren't familiar, so I'll quickly explain. But supposedly there was, you were familiar with Cartman. Supposedly he, pulled 300 ancient shards because he wanted to get Draco during a Dracomorph event. He didn't get him, so he started like flipping off the camera, raging, and then went to play like Hearthstone or something live on stream. Long story short, he gets an email from Plarium or whatever. They say, hey, log back into your account, and he has Dracomorph. So then the community was just on fire. Torches were lit. Oh my gosh, a streamer, all they have to do is rage and they're going to be given a champion. So yeah, that was a massive fiasco, that a PR nightmare for Plarium. And then they released the battle pass, and all of a sudden, nobody really knows why. There's no rhyme or reason, but people are just getting banned. They're getting locked out of their accounts. And it's like, it's like an automated system that's just flagging random people's accounts, and they're getting, these people like spent money and now they're just banned. They lost everything. They can't get into their account, and customer service is so flooded that they can't possibly get to everybody. It's just been an absolute nightmare for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
So
yeah. So the one thing I did know about that is I think it was Hell Hades interviewed Cyrilla, which was interesting. So like that was probably one of the longer conversations with the creative director that I had. So like I went to the creative director maybe 2.5 months ago, and I wanted to bring, and not even really for an interview, but I wanted to bring Valkyrie and Cyrilla on a live stream,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were all about it, right? But you could also tell, like, they were like, yeah, we're down to do it, but we have to get permission, and we don't necessarily think we're gonna get permission.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually can talk my way into things. So like I went to the creative director and I was like, hey, can we talk about this? And he had a really, really good reason for not doing it. And I guess like the girls in that office, so like they're all pretty attractive or really attractive from what he was telling me, Eastern Europeans, but like they've actually gotten legitimately stalked and like doxxed. Like they've had real issues on their other games with the fact that they have attractive women working there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what he did tell me is he was like, look, we want to start to like maybe put some other faces into the community and then we'll be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was like, okay, cool. So like maybe he did that, but at the time it was a pretty hard no. And he was like, yeah, we got to protect these girls. We can't, we can't do that. Like we can't have, girls getting doxxed. We can't have girls getting like stalked. There's actually a person that comes to mind as I say this. If you know who I'm referring to. But he was like, we can't be having that stuff, here. And I was like, and I respected it. I was like, cool.
Yeah,
I
no,
really
yep.
got you. It sounds like he took care of whatever he needed to take care of to allow that to happen. So that's good because, those are significant members of the community, that most people would recognize and, probably think it's interesting to hear from. So what I'm trying to say is, a little bit of backstory there, but I did see the interview with Cyrilla and I did see her kind of try to like explain why they gave Cartman the Draco.
Yeah.
And like my first thought was like, this girl needs some media training. Like she's like, hell, he's put no pressure on her at all. Like he was a dream interviewer, but it did not go well. I was like, oh man, this is not gonna be well received.
Yeah, no, and I don't know even know if you knew this, but I actually did a video where I interviewed Cyrilla. But it was
See, I didn't see this.
Yeah,
I need to see this though.
But it was like probably 2 weeks before her video with Hell Hades. And so it was before all of this drama. So back when I interviewed Cyrilla, really the only drama in the community was your standard mobile gaming stuff, like when's the next patch coming, stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay. But so my interview with her was a lot more just kind of casual, getting to know, what her job entails and kind of how it functions there at Plarium, how the complaint process works, what's the steps to get to the dev and get things into the game. And it was a more casual conversation. But like you said, to your point, I was trying to get that interview with Cyrilla for probably 6 months because it was the same. Yeah. It was the same stuff you were talking about where it was like, can't get a permission to do it and whatnot.
Yeah. And like I said, I definitely respected it. It made sense, but at the same time, like, in other mobile games, I had noticed that, actually in Age of Magic, there was like a big personality behind like a female community manager, right? Mm-hmm. So that was always in the back of my mind when I made content for for Age of Magic to eventually bring her on. But there is other games where like the content or the community managers are kind of, they're there or there's a lot of them. And they're not necessarily like, the figurehead that Cyrilla can be. Mm-hmm. So, it very naturally made sense to eventually interview. Now, one thing I was told, and I don't know if this has happened or not, but so there's 2 creative directors that I know. They told me that they were going to do videos of themselves introducing themselves to the community. Did that ever happen?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask him because I need to talk to him tomorrow about some other stuff. But I'll ask him when I do. But like when I talked to him last, which was about a month ago, they were acting like that was going to be out right away. And they also said that they wanted to do that before they let Cyrilla and Valkyrie do videos, because then worst comes to worst, people start flaming Plarium and have questions, like they can actually start out with the creative directors versus starting out with just hammering Cyrilla, which I thought was pretty cool too. I thought that made sense.
Yeah, no, that's good, and a lot of that is good moves that I agree with. But anytime you're in a market that's 95% male and you make 1 or 2 girls the face of community relations, like these
Yeah.
these types of people trying to get DMs with them and trying to talk to them. I mean, like, it's just gonna, like, there's just too many hundreds of thousands of people. It's gonna happen.
I mean, for sure they bring in, they bring in that demographic. Let's keep it like as corporate. It's your channel. I'm gonna keep it as corporate as possible until you tell me otherwise. But when they bring in that demographic to be the community representative, yeah, you're kind of digging yourself a hole, right? And hopefully you're keeping that person's like dignity and integrity in mind, because what you don't want is for them to be getting doxxed or stalked and stuff
Yeah,
like
no,
that. And
no.
yeah, and as we know firsthand, Cyrilla's been stalked. We know the main person that did it. Um, so yeah, you have to insulate yourself from your people from that. As like if you're going to be in leadership in a company, you have to be thinking about stuff like that. And I did respect the fact that the creative directors that I deal with, in particular, they thought about that. Don't know for sure what happened between my conversation with them and then Cyrilla, doing some interviews, but I'm sure they took some steps to ensure her safety, like maybe like double encryption or something that really kept her from being able to get doxxed, because that was their ultimate fear.
No, I have a lot of respect for these people. Now that I've kind of had this conversation with you, because yeah, that stuff is extremely important. You can't kind of take that lightly.
Yeah, that was maybe the most bizarre thing in my experience playing Raid was, once I started, dealing with the creative directors, honestly, right before my first conversation with them, which might have been 3-4 months ago, I was pretty much there. I was like, all right, I'm gonna pivot to another game. Like, I don't like this game. I don't like the way it's being ran. It's hard for me, like, having a business development background, to watch something ran really poorly, because it's just like, I don't want to give it my dollar votes. I don't want to reward it despite the fact that it's being ran incredibly poorly. And I saw that in Raid, but then like right in my first conversation, we did a Skype video, because at the time we were all talking about going to Ukraine for that trip.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved the schedule around on us, so they did a Skype video with me to apologize for moving the schedule. And man, they were awesome, really good dudes. And then like they started like being like really self-deprecating about how much they were screwing up the game and how they plan to fix it. And like they kind of had me there. I was like, wow, like they get it. Somewhere between the leadership and the execution, this has fallen apart. But they understand it. They know it. They're looking for it. Let's give them time. And I mean, for me, I've given them a little bit too much time. I mean, at some point, things have got to get better. But what I think they're honestly doing right now is I think that all they really focus on is their marketing budget, and not just from what I've seen, but like I've actually heard them say that. So like I'll put it to you like this: in a corporate environment, having independent discretionary funding for whatever marketing you feel like doing as one person, that's unheard of. I've never heard of that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't work in mobile games, but I've seen numerous marketing budgets in my life. I could not imagine. Here's the reason why. You can't pitch an ROI with that. I can't say to you as the decision maker over a board, or the ultimate approver over a CapEx or a budget request, hey, I can't prove to you that I can make money with this $1 million, but if you give it to me, I promise I'll be able to do it. Like, that's never going to get approved, ever.
Yeah.
Let me put it like this.
Well, I just want to quick say ROI is return on investment. There's probably some people that don't know that, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but they had that at Plarium, and they told me that they have that, and I was like, so just to back up for a second, some of you guys have independent discretionary budgets that you can just invest in as you see fit for marketing? They're like, yeah. And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, like, I'm not a CFO, but I could imagine any corporate controller just like losing their
mind.
That's like
a hair puller.
Yeah, and I was just kind of like, I was like, how's that working out? They're like, well, we really don't know yet. We're just kind of trying it out. I was like, okay, and like it all kind of clicked. But I think that's, and to be honest, I mean, just having a corporate BD background or business development background, that is bizarre to hear someone say that. But at the same time, the game seems to be performing really well. They are publicly traded through the Australian stock market, which I can't think of the name of right now. mainly because I don't do anything with it. But they're publicly traded under Aristocrat Gaming or Gambling or whatever it is. And but Aristocrat does not break up the financials by game. They only break up the financials by Plarium.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So even though I go through 10Ks and 10Qs daily and break up financials to understand how what we call a sum of the parts, which means how every independent aspect of the business functions by itself, I could do that math in like probably take me about an hour, but unfortunately they don't release it. I really wanted to, to be able to actually see if Plarium,
as a publicly traded company, that information is nowhere.
Well, no, they don't have to disclose it. They have to disclose their financials per company.
Yep.
Right.
But you're saying you can't find the RAID contribution.
No.
Yeah.
Cannot find the RAID contribution. Yeah. And then to be honest, they don't really show it for Plarium either. They basically just have so you can get by, even in America being publicly traded, you can get by kind of just having what's called Edgar management notes. So like Edgar is basically the repository that all of your filings go into for commentaries on your quarterly reports, right? Which you have to disclose. But you can kind of fall back on, well, we talked about that in the management commentary section. Like you don't have to get too granular into your financials. You have to, you have certain limits that you have to hit, but if you had independent aspects of a greater company, you typically don't have to talk about it. Right. So in most cases, you can just show the EBITDA or the earnings of the company itself, even just the parent company. So like you don't have to break it down by region. You don't have to break it down. If your company was an operating arm over 8 companies, you would not have to specifically talk about how those 8 companies function independently. All you have to talk about is how they function in aggregate, which unfortunately is why I've gone through Aristocrat's annual report like probably the last 3 years of it, different points in times. And when they came out with their 2019 one, I read it, and there is a little bit of commentary on Plarium, but they only talk about Vikings. So you could, which is one of their games, you could kind of say, well, maybe Vikings is the cash cow of the group, which is why they shouted it out. But like Plarium. With regards to RAID or, the Ukraine office of Plarium, which is exclusively RAID, as I understand it, they are not mentioned in that annual report.
I don't think their Ukrainian office is exclusively RAID.
I think it is because their main office is in Israel. They might do a little bit more, and they might do a little bit more in Ukraine. But like I know that, well, I'll put it like this: I know 100% of RAID comes from the Ukraine office.
That is true.
I don't know for sure.
That is true.
Yeah.
But I know Stu had joined me a few days ago for a conversation, and he was talking about how there's like 600 people that work at the Ukrainian office. But he was kind of joking. He's like, but I don't think any of them are working on RAID. So
yeah, you see, the funny part about that is, so Stu actually got that from me a while back. There's 650 employees at the Ukrainian office. And if I remember correctly, a few of them, the one I can think of right now, the key one is Ranger. So he's based out of Ukraine, but he'll work with the Israeli office. Now, that I know for sure. And so he works with the Israeli office, and he works on other games. I almost want to say, though, that Ukrainian office, as I remember it, was open for RAID. But I'm pulling a little bit too much off of memory now.
I do believe that because I know in my interview with Cyrilla, you could kind of see the backdrop of the Plarium Ukrainian office, and it's a bunch of RAID. It's like a huge statue of Aethel, and it's a bunch of RAID stuff. So I would buy that.
The other thing that was interesting is apparently the game designers, not that any of these are like super relevant secrets, but things most people maybe don't know. But the game is like the actual designers that like do the character models and stuff. Since there's so many ridiculously attractive women that work there, they started designing them off of the women that work there.
Oh my gosh!
Apparently, Aethel is an actual employee. She's not. Her name's not Aethel, but like there's an employee that looks identical to Aethel there. Don't know who it is.
That's too funny.
But that's what I was told. So,
I was joking one day on stream how they need to hire me for marketing, because the first thing I would do is have them make a yearly calendar, like the Women of Raid, and release a calendar, and they would sell like 1 million copies of that thing and make like 5 million.
So would you do like you're not talking about the characters, like you're talking about the employees, right?
No, I'm talking about the characters. Like
the characters.
Yeah, the characters. So you'd have like
Yeah.
you'd have the 12 most attractive characters, and have like, you know, one of them featured for each month, and call it like the Women of Raid. And you know that calendar would sell like 1 million copies.
Oh, it definitely would. It definitely would. And you know, it's it's funny. Like I remember one of my streams, Castris, who I think I want to say he either owns or is really high up in a decent sized company. But he was telling, like, it's just funny how people think, you know, because like I don't use LinkedIn very much, but like, you know, a lot of my colleagues do.
Mm-hmm.
But like when I made that comment about one of the employees looking like April, he immediately went to Plarium's LinkedIn page, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like he DM'd me like 30 minutes later. He's like, dude, you've got to open up. He's like, this is a smoke show, man. He's like, just go through it live on stream and just talk about like how ridiculously high these employees are. And I was like, as much as I like to,
Yeah,
I
no.
don't think that's gonna work well. You know, but I still haven't done it yet. I still haven't gone through it and actually looked, but I'm sure Eastern Bloc, and yeah, I mean, I've heard from a lot of friends that travel a lot that Kharkiv, Ukraine, is like the spot for ridiculously attractive Eastern Bloc women. So I'm sure they have quite a few.
Okay, well, we're getting to the point where we need to wrap this up before we start going down too many rabbit holes here.
Yeah, it's probably a good move. It's probably a good move.
But no, dude, this was a blast. We'll have to do this again, and hopefully, definitely tell people. Are you going to be coming back and making content, or going to be an active part of the community anytime soon, or ever again, or?
Yeah, for sure. So the challenge right now is, you know, when I'm mostly in Philadelphia, I do travel a good bit. I think most folks know that I live, you know, in Charlotte. Now I'm in Charlotte, like I try to keep it 100% family time, because I'm only there a day or two a week right now because of my work schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to stream in Philly, but I'm in like an executive housing with horrible Wi-Fi. There's no way to do it, you know, and like I'd have to go rent another apartment to stream Wi-Fi from, or try to like, I don't even know if they let me bring in a router from like a different, you know, provider in here. Frankly, I can't even figure out half the time how like the laundry system works here. So like, you know, going into that would be just a level up for me.
Mm-hmm.
So my plan has always been like, as I get a place here, I'm going to make sure that like I'm immediately able to get my rig set up and start streaming again. I don't know exactly when that's going to be, but I would say, you know, sometime in the next 60 days, I think is reasonable. So, but yeah, definitely. As soon as it happens, I will tough it out. I will force myself to play Raid on Twitch, because, you know, not the biggest fan of it, but, you know, I love the community and, you know, and everybody that's in it. And then I'll probably go back to my original plan of, you know, organically pivoting to a different game. And as I understand, a lot of you guys are playing a couple different games right now, so I'll see where you guys are at, and, you know, we'll figure it out. So I'm definitely coming back.
Awesome. That is good news. I think I speak for everybody when I say that. So yeah, okay. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time out of your night to kind of sit down and chat with me, man.
Yeah, man. Anytime, dude. I really enjoyed it. So
awesome. Well, take it easy.
Yeah, man. You too, bro.
All right. Thanks. We'll see you.
All right, man.
Alrighty, that's going to do it for this video with Kizzle, and definitely a huge shout out to him for taking the time to kind of sit down and reconnect and chat with me. It was a lot of fun talking with him both off camera and on camera, so we had a good time with that. And I will link to his channel down in the video description. Definitely check him out, give him a sub, because he's going to be coming back at some point here in the next 2 or 3 months and killing it again on Raid. So yeah, that's going to kind of do it for this video. As always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.